Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend. And I'm excited to share an experience that I had over the weekend that helped me practice what I teach. And I believe that life constantly gives us opportunities, sometimes in the form of challenges, that help us evolve. And evolve means to improve. And what happens is, as we improve, our life continues to change over time, and the life skills are always there to help us face these challenges that I like to see as opportunities. But before I tell you the story, I want to talk about our theme based on this life skill lesson that I'm going to give you about relationships. We've talked this year about relationships and how good relationships, the difference between good relationships and bad relationships. We've been reading the story, The Giving Tree, and this really does show what unhealthy relationships can do. It can really turn people into stumps, if you want to look at that way. So having healthy relationships are really important. And there is a saying that no person is an island. That means that we really are connected. And in order to live our life, we have to be connected to people in different levels. And that's really what this discussion is about the levels of relationships that we have. Now, we start with our relationships that are very important to us, the relationships that we focus on and put the most time into. And one of them is family. And you can see here's a picture of Hudson's first birthday, and Mrs. K and I are there celebrating with Hudson. And that's part of the family experience, is the celebration. We can put the bunny ears on and we can eat cake and we can laugh and we can have a good time. But there's another part of that relationship too, in the family relationship, and that's a sense of responsibility. There are times where we've had to take care of Hudson before, and it wasn't the most enjoyable experience. We weren't wearing bunny ears and eating cake. And there's been times where Katie, her daughter, has helped us out when we needed help from them. So in a relationship, there's a sense of kindness and there's a sense of responsibility built into even the family relationship. Now, it's really important to make sure that you're developing good relationships with your family, because that is going to be with you for a very long time. And that's something that is very important, to have that connection with your family. So family, there's a saying that says family first. Well, I actually disagree with that. And I'll tell you what does come first. What comes first is you. And I know I picked this relationship kind of as an exaggeration, this picture, but really what I'm trying to show here is the fact that the relationship you have with yourself is going to be the relationship most likely that you're going to have with other people, because what you end up doing is the way that you feel about yourself, the relationship you have with yourself is usually what you're looking for in the world. And being able to be yourself, being the true you in the real world, is really your goal. So that means you need to take time and you need to have some personal time that you can look in and you can find that inner voice. Because what happens in life is we get a lot of different messages. Some of them come from outside and some of them come from inside. And not all of them are, we talk about in class, we have the different voices, right? Sometimes we have these messages that we get, and they're messages that no longer serve us, messages that either are not kind to ourselves or others, or not responsible for ourselves or others. And then we have the other voice, which is the responsible, kind voice that we have. And we receive these messages, and these voices play in our minds all the time. So taking time, and I meditate. Now, I don't do it this way. And that's one of the reasons I'm showing you this exaggeration here. Some people do meditate that way, but see, I choose not to. I choose to find my quiet voice by just spending some quiet time and going through what thoughts I have and what works best for me and the relationships that I have. Because I know the better relationship I have with myself, even with difficult people, I can develop a better relationship. And that's part of the story that I'm going to tell you in a minute. I'm just setting the background here, okay? The next part, and this is the part that is super important, are neighbors. Okay. There's a lot of saying about loving the neighbors and that. And I don't know if loving your neighbors is necessarily important. What is important, in my opinion, is respecting your neighbors. Okay. And respect basically means that you know that you have rights That means what you're allowed, but you also have responsibilities for those. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us don't know our neighbors anymore. We're living in a world that's a little bit more disconnected in a way. But that doesn't mean that we can't respect our neighbors. Now, if you know your neighbors, that's fantastic. But even if you don't, there's a level of respect in there. And one of the energies that we're all connected by with the neighbors is noise. Okay. So this is kind of where my story begins, is that Mrs. K and I live in a neighborhood. We don't live out in the woods anywhere, and we don't live on an island. We live in a neighborhood, like you most likely do. And we're connected. So if you look at this photograph, the aerial photograph, there's a whole bunch of people around us, right? Now, we're not usually connected by our actions or our day-to-day affairs because we just live our own lives. But noise is a really important one for neighbors, okay? Noise. And sound does travel. It travels outside of the walls, and we're all connected by that. So Mrs. K and I love our neighborhood, and we have great neighbors, and it's fantastic. But we do have neighbors. There's one neighbors that we have that are a little bit noisy. Now, they have a different lifestyle, and they're great people. They really are fantastic people, but they have a different lifestyle, and their lifestyle is a little bit noisier, a little bit more active than Mrs. K and I are used to. So there's been a couple of times where I've had to go over there and I've had to talk to them about the noise. And I did it very. Now, yeah, were there times that I wanted to like go over the fence and start pointing fingers and doing all that? Absolutely. But see, there's a relationship there because the neighbors are going to be your neighbors, just like family and just like yourself. It's really difficult when you have a bad relationship with those three because it's always going to be there, right? Or at least for a long time. So I'd go over there very respectfully and I'd say, hey, I get iMessages like you learn in school, right? I'd really appreciate it if this would happen because of this reason. And everything's been fine. But I've done it a couple of times, and I didn't want the neighbors to think that I didn't like them because I did. I was just standing up for myself. And it's totally fine to stand up for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. If you think something's a problem and you want to do it in a way where you're not hurting the relationship, you're trying to improve it, go ahead. But if it's a point where it's a real problem, especially at your age, you talk to an adult about it and you make sure that they solve it in that way where they're trying to build a good relationship. But recently their dog has been barking. Okay, they have a dog and it's been barking, and I've been a little bit hesitant, which means I've kind of resisted going over there and talking to them about it because I don't want them to think that I don't like them and that I'm picking on them. But I was thinking about doing it in the near future. Okay, so this dog's been barking and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna have to go over there and talk to them. So anyways, I'm up in my room yesterday. This is where the story begins. And I'm meditating. I'm up in my room and I'm thinking about my thoughts and how I think and what works for me and what's not working and all this. And all of a sudden, I get this voice, right? We're talking about voices that we have. It says something about just look out the window. You need to look out the window. I can't explain it. It just happened. Okay. Anyways, so I get up and I look out the window and there's the dog. Okay, there's the dog that I'm talking about right now, right? That Mrs. K and I have actually had some like discussions about. Okay, it's caused some little tension. There's the dog, and it's out in the middle of the street. It's just sitting there in the middle of the street. So I'm thinking, well, the owners must be there. I mean, there's the dog. It's out in the street, and it's a just beautiful dog. You'll see it in a minute. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, well, where are the owners at, right? Now, remember, I'm up in my room, I'm meditating, I'm just out in la la land with the unicorns and the jelly bean fields, right? Because I can find that now, which is great. But I mean, I had a choice. I had a choice. So I see the dog out there. I know the dog doesn't have their owners around, and I have a choice. Now, this is where the life skills come in, right? I'm going to be honest with you. My first thought was, that dog's out there. That's not my problem. Maybe it will find its way home. Maybe it won't. Now, that happened for about a second. But listen, those voices do exist. And if you're not aware of them, sometimes it's really easy to just fall into that. But then the other voice was like, you know what, Chris? That dog is like part of their family. And they probably love that dog to death, even though it barks all the time. You need to do something about it. So what I did is I went downstairs and I went out and I tried to get the dog. Now, let me show you how it started here. The first thing is that the dog didn't trust me. Okay. The dog didn't trust me. So what I did is I followed the dog, and I happen to know the dog's name because I've heard the owners call the dog the dog's name a couple of times. So I tried to get the dog to trust me and it didn't. So I sat with this dog for like 15 minutes. Okay. I sat there for 15 minutes. I remember this dog is the dog that's been driving me crazy for the last like month. Right now, I'm sitting here caring about this dog, hoping it's going to come to me. Right. So finally, Mrs. K went in and she got some treats for the dog, right? So I threw a treat and I like threw it like right here. So the dog comes up and I'm talking to the dog, right? I'm like, I'm not, like it didn't understand me, but I'm sure it can understand my energy and the fact that I really didn't want to hurt it. So I drew the dog a little bit closer and finally he came up and he let me pet him. Okay. So now I have to walk the dog to the house, which is around the neighborhood. Okay. It got through the fence somehow or some weird way. I don't even know how it got through. But, anyways, this dog is like, if you know anything about Siberian Huskies, those things are like horses. Okay. This thing was pulling me. I'm at like 185 pounds. I'm not a small guy. And this dog was walking me. I wasn't walking the dog. Okay. Now, here's this dog that's been driving me nuts. And all of a sudden, I'm walking this dog, and people are looking at me and they're like, what a beautiful dog. And all of a sudden, I started having feelings for this dog. It went from being an annoying thing that I, in the back of my mind, wish would go away, to now I'm walking this dog and people were like, what a beautiful dog. Well, thank you. I'm starting to take pride in this dog now, right? So do you see how relationships change when you change? And my perspective, the way that I saw this dog was totally different now. It was almost like it was my dog, right? I cared about it. I'm walking it home. So I get it to the house and they're not there. They're not there. So I knock on their door. I leave a note on the door with my phone number on it, right? These are people who I've had issues with before, and I'm leaving my phone number and my personal information. There's a little bit of trust in here, isn't there? Right? Because I trust humans. I just do. I know all humans are good inside. And if you treat humans well, you're going to get treated back. And I'm helping their dog. So, I mean, they have to care about me now, or at least give me a chance, right? So, anyways, so I have to take the dog back. So now I've walked this dog. I'm tired. My back is sore today, okay, from walking this dog because it was pulling me around. It was really strong, right? So I take it back to our house, and you can see how beautiful this dog is. I mean, it's just gorgeous, okay? Beautiful blue eyes, and just now we kept the dog in the backyard for like 2 hours. They didn't come home for like 2 hours. Now, I could have taken the dog to the shelter. I could have. But if I took the dog to the shelter, then they're going to get charged for it because the dog was out without a leash and I knew exactly who owned it. It's right across the fence there. So I decided to use my kindness and my responsibility to just watch the dog. So I sat out with the dog. I pet the dog. We developed this great relationship. Okay. In fact, in this picture, you could see he's licking my ear. That's why I got that weird look on my face. But there's the dog. There's the dog that was my annoyance, the thing that I wish would go away, what Mrs. K and I had some discussions about, right? And here's this dog licking my ear, right? And it was fantastic. So they come home, I see their lights go on, and they come around and they pick the dog up. And they asked me, they said, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. What can we do for you? What do we owe you? And I stopped right there and I said, you don't owe me anything. You've been great neighbors. When I've come over and talked to you, you've been very respectful, because there were times they were playing their music really loud. And since I talked to them, they turned their music down. A lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, people aren't doing things because they're aware of it. They're not aware of it. You have to make people aware of it in a nice way. They weren't aware that their music was that loud. I know they didn't, because they really did turn it down. As that now we got the mower going on outside the door, right? So I'm in a model that I can keep going and not let that bother me either, because sound could be really annoying. So anyways, I just said, you don't owe me anything. You've been a great neighbor. I really appreciate having our neighborhood is fantastic, and let's keep in touch. And they're actually invited me over to their next barbecue. You know, these barbecues that get loud and all this kind of thing. And I've always kind of like, now I'm invited to one of these barbecues. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to have a good time, and I'm going to make some new friends out of this. And in the future, if I have to talk to them about their dog, or I have to talk about them about anything, we've developed a relationship now. And that's really an important life skill. It's really about the relationships you develop. And of course, your family's super important, and you're super important, and your friends are super important. But it's the people around you too, the people that you're connected with. When you come back to school, your classmates, your neighbors, even the people that you run into at the grocery store. We're all connected by energy, and we're all connected by the way we treat each other. And the way you treat people has a lot of the way they treat you. And sometimes you have to give them a chance. Sometimes they may not be so kind at first, or they might be a little bit rude, or what we might call obnoxious. Give them a chance, because you can see in this photograph here that I really love, that here's this dog that I really wasn't very pleased with, and now he's like my best friend. And if I hear him yapping outside, at least I'm going to have some caring for that dog. Okay, now should he be out there barking all the time? No, but I don't think he will be, because we changed the relationship by making good choices. And I hope that story helped you with your life skills, and realizing that a lot of the relationship is up to you. A relationship goes both ways, and you could always set a good example. You could always put your best foot forward and try your best. And that's what I did. And I'm really proud of myself for that. And I hope you have a great day.